Alright guys, okay, so this is going over for those that did not do so well on the quadratic unit test. So I'm going to go over each style of question on here, and then you are going to be responsible for doing the other, and you can earn some credit back onto your test. You must show all work, okay? I cannot emphasize that enough. Must show work, okay? You have to in order to get your credit. All right, so solving by factoring. So if we look at this, my A value is 1. So I'm just going to start by opening two sets of parentheses. I start with my C, so factors of 3 that subtract to give me 2. So factors of 3 that subtract to give me 2. Obviously, there's only one set of factors. The bigger number goes first. I have x's here. The first sign comes straight down. The second sign, if it is a minus, then the two signs in the parentheses must be opposites. And then what we're thinking in our head is we're making this equal 0. So then if I solve that, x would equal positive 3 and x would equal negative 1. And that's my answer. Okay? All right, so if we look at number 4, now number 4 is slightly different because number 4, our A value is greater than 1. So we must use the AC method. So I'm going to take 8 times 5 gives me 40. So now I have factors of 40 that add to give me 41. Okay, so obviously that's our first set of factors if we were listing these out. So 1 times 40. If I add those, it gives me 41. If I multiply them, it gives me 40. The bigger one goes first. X goes first in each one. First sign comes straight down. The second sign is a plus, so the ones inside the parentheses have to match. Now, I got some help from my A value because I couldn't find factors of 5 that add to give me 41. So I got some help from my A value, and we did that by multiplying it in. So then to take the A back out, we have to divide by our A value. So then I have x plus 5. And then this one, because this does not divide evenly, it's 8x plus 1. And then just like up here before when we were solving, we imagined these to equal 0. So then x would equal negative 5 and x would equal negative 1/8. And those are my two solutions. There and there. Okay, so that's factoring. All right, so then solving by square root method. So in this method, if you notice, we're missing our B value. So what we want to do is we want to isolate the x squared, then take the square root of both sides. Okay? All right, so for number 1, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So then I have 16x squared equals 4. Divide by 16. I get x squared equals 4/16. So then I'm going to take the square root, and we take the square root of the top and then take the square root of the bottom. So I get x equals positive negative. A lot of people miss that on their test. So positive negative 2/4, which is 1/2. So my answer here would be positive negative 1/2. Remember, you take the square root of the top and the bottom there, okay? If you don't have a fraction and you just have a number, let's say we get x squared equals 8 for 1, well, then you would just be taking the square root of each side and you would get x equals. Then you have to simplify the radical here. So 2 and 4. And 2 and 2. I have a pair of 2's, so that comes outside, and then I have 1 2 left over, so that stays on the inside. And of course, this is plus minus. Okay, so make sure that you're simplifying the radical. Okay. All right, using quadratic formula. Okay, so remember we start with our b squared minus 4ac. So I have negative 10 squared minus 4 times negative 5 times negative 8. Be very careful with this negative 10 here. A lot of people made that mistake on the test, is they put in negative 10 on their calculator and it gave them a negative 100 when that is not true. So again, watch the difference here. So if I have negative 10 squared minus 4, negative 5, and negative 8, notice I get negative 260. Now watch what happens when I put that negative 10 in parentheses, and then we multiply. Notice now I get negative 60. This one is the correct way, this one's the incorrect way. Correct? Incorrect. So I have negative 60. So now I do negative b, so that's 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 60 all over 2 times negative 5. So now I need to simplify the negative 60 under here. So I'm going to do my factor tree. So I have 15 times 4, so 2 and 2, 5 and 3. So I have a pair of 2's here, so that's going to come out. And then I have 5 times 3 gives me 15. To account for the negative, remember the square root of negative 1 equals I. So this is 2I radical 15. So now I'm going to replace the negative 60, square root of negative 60 with 2I radical 15. So I have 10 plus or minus 2I radical 15 all over negative 10. So now I'm looking at 10, 2, and 10. What can I divide all those by? Divide everything by 2, so it's 5 plus or minus 1I, or just I, radical 15 all over 5. I'm sorry, negative 5. And that is your solution. Okay, so you're doing the same thing over here. I will write on the paper, just remember your the quadratic formula, right, is negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay? All right, so then let's look at word problems. Okay? So a toy rocket is launched from a 1-meter platform. The path of the rocket can be described by the equation where h is the height in meters and t is the time in seconds. Answer the following questions. How high is the rocket after 1 second? So for this, you're going to plug and chug. So you're just plugging 1 in for t for the time. So negative 4.9 times 1 squared plus 49 times 1 plus 1. So again, if we do this on our calculator, negative 4.9 times 1 squared plus 49 times 1 plus 1. So that gives me 45.1. And this is meters. What is the maximum height of the rocket? All right, so maximum height of the rocket is going to be your vertex. And if we look at question C, that's the other part of our vertex. So this is the y of our vertex, and this is the x of the vertex. So here, negative b over 2a. So negative b is negative 49 over 2 times negative 4.9. So if we do this, now again, you need to be really careful on your calculator. If I do negative 49 divided by 2 and then I put parentheses negative 4.9, that is wrong. Wrong. Don't do that. Okay, we want negative 49 divided by, and then put the bottom all in parentheses. So that equals 5. So it took the rocket 5 seconds to get to its highest point. So then to figure out what the highest point is, we're going to plug this in back into our equation for t, because that's time, and this is time. So we have negative 4.9 times 5 squared plus 49 times 5 plus 1. So I'm going to put this in my calculator. I do it step by step just to be sure. So I start with 5 squared times negative 4.9. Messed that up. Let's try that again. Negative 4.9. Okay, now plus 49 times 5 plus 1 gives me 123.5. So 123.5 meters is its highest point. Okay, so again, if we're looking at our rocket, it's being launched, our vertex is going to be at 123.5. This is your time. This is your height. Okay? All right, and then the last one says, how many seconds does it take for the rocket to hit the ground? So this is where you're using quadratic formula. All right, so start with our b squared minus 4ac. So 49 squared minus 4 times negative 4.9 times 1. So 49 squared minus 4, negative 4.9, and 1. So 2420.6. 2420.6. So now I write out my quadratic formula. So now I have negative b, so negative 49 plus or minus the square root, 2420.6, all over 2 times negative 4.9. Now, from here, I'm just going to straight do calculator work because we don't talk in radicals when we're talking about time. We just don't talk in radicals at all. So I'm just going to go straight to my calculator. I'm going to do the plus version, and then I do the minus version. All right, so I'm going to have negative 49 plus square root 2420.6, enter, divided by 2 times negative 4.9. So that gives me this long decimal of a negative. Well, again, we're trying to find the time, so it doesn't make sense for time to be negative. So that one doesn't make sense. So I'm going to do the minus. So now I have negative 49 minus the square root of 2420.6, enter, divided by 2 times negative 4.9. And that gives me 10.02. It says round to the nearest 10 or 100th if needed. So then this is 10.02, and that is seconds. So my answer here is 10.02 seconds. Okay. All right. I need for you guys, you can download this. This is also scanned on to Schoology, so you can look at it and see it, so you can use it as a reference. And then you need to do the other problems that are on there. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks, guys.